Welcome to Caribbean Vision, where intellect meets art and where passion meets progress. Today, we have on set Dara E Healy. Dara is a communications stalwart. She's a classically trained dancer and also a historian in her own right. And we're happy to have Dara with us today on Caribbean Vision. Welcome, Dara.
Hi, I'm glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you. So, Dara, it's no secret. I've known Dara for a long time. Dara, I've known you for a long time. And when I think of you, a few words first come to mind. One of the first words is passion.
Yes.
And one of the other words is tradition. And I think you sort of meld the two together. So tell me about the history part. Tell me about what have you been doing? Tell me about the tradition and the culture. And I know those are big things for you.
Okay, well, I am the founder of an organization called Intellect, and that is essentially a cultural organization. And Ida has an interesting story in that Ida is actually the name of my grandmother. And the rest of the word is made up of the names of my sisters and my mother. Awesome. So Kisembe, Entu, Dara, Attila. But it starts with Ida because she was the beginning of everything, and everything we do, we honor her. Okay. And Ida was actually formed to manage the works of my mother, Entu Pearl Springer.
Poet laureate.
She is a poet. She's an award-winning actress. She's a playwright, and she's a storyteller. But she was not known for managing her work in the sense that she would gain financial value out of what she was doing. So Ida was formed to organize her work and then to ensure that she would reap financial value out of her work.
Make it sustainable.
Exactly. And Ida just developed a personality of its own because we were asked to work with young people. Now, Entu had always worked with young people in vulnerable areas like Mova and Laventil and so on. And we were asked to come up with a project that would appeal to young people in a non-didactic way, that would help to build their self-esteem and that would help them to understand life and possibilities through culture. So Entu wrote a play called Baby Doll Meets Midnight Robber, and that went through schools throughout Trinidad and Tobago as well. And essentially, it looked at our traditional carnival characters, the baby doll, the devil, and the midnight robber. And it told the story of Baby Doll as she experiences life and meets up with these characters and the lessons that are learned through these characters.
Weren't you Baby Doll?
I played Baby Doll. Sometimes, yes. Yeah. And it was a very eye-opening experience because I remember in one school, for instance, I would always put real milk in the bottle. And in one school, the children took the doll, pulled it apart, threw milk on the doll, and there was a real kind of visceral reaction to the doll and to Baby Doll. And we realized through that process that there were a lot of issues that young people were dealing with at that time and still dealing with now. And Ida just grew from there in terms of the outreach to young people. Okay. So that was the beginning.
Okay. And I know you're also the founder of the Indigenous Creative Arts Network, ICANN. Yes. And ICANN came out of Ida work, right?
Yes.
Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. So what happened is that we were going through schools, but those programs were just stopped. They were cut. And we had depended on the income from the Ministry of Education, to pay our actors, our sound and that kind of thing. And so we have not gone back into schools with that program, but we've done it on our own independently in other countries in the world, actually. But we decided that we no longer wanted to be dependent on anyone for a source of income because the programs were more important. Right. So we formed the NGO as a means of being able to raise our own funds and to have an independent approach to the work that we're doing. Because the problem is that once you start working with young people, you build up a sense of trust and a sense of expectation, and you do yourself a disservice if
the program stops.
If the program stops, and they become used to you being there, and they depend on you, and then for some reason you don't show up,
because you lose that trust.
You lose the trust, and because the young people come from vulnerable areas, they are used to people betraying them, and so we don't want to be part of the circle of people that they know who betray them. So the Indigenous Creative Arts Network, we've started from scratch. We have a few young people, but it's about building our own reputation. It's about building our own cadre of young people who we will train, who will also then filter into some of the bigger plays and performances, and so that we do. So.
There's this one term that you use that really resonates. It really hit home with me: healing through arts and culture. What's that about? You know, there's a lot of what you said there, but it's such a powerful term.
We have discovered that young people are not interested in being lectured to. They are very receptive when you just either rap to them, or when you present a scenario to them through which they can pull their own lessons. And we found that very dramatically, pun intended, with Baby Doll Meets Midnight Rubber. And nobody stood up and said, don't do drugs, don't have sex, don't do any of these things. But through the performance, they got all of the lessons. And we didn't only deal with HIV/AIDS and sex before marriage or those kinds of things, but we also dealt with self-esteem issues.
Which is important, and it feeds into all of those other areas.
Exactly. So we would ask the girls, do you like when the boys wear their pants below their leg? And they would say no. And then we ask the boys, would you marry a girl like Baby Doll? No. And so, we basically establish a conversation between us and them. And that is where the healing comes, because we talk to young girls about how they dress, about how they speak, even young boys as well, about their role as men within the society, because for us, that is that sense of manhood and having responsibility for your family and your community. Yeah. We don't see that often enough. So these are the kinds of intrinsic values that we want to see coming back, and that's where that healing comes from.
Nice. And Tu said something. I was listening to an interview that she did. It was on YouTube or something I was looking at. And then she said, give the young people something to claim so they can have something to protect. And I think not just young people. I think people in Trinidad in general, we need to sort of reclaim us so we can have something to protect, because we have been losing our culture.
Yes.
And I know that's important for you. I know you are a historian in your own right. And you play a big part in the reenaction of the Camberley riots and the history tours and stuff that you do. Could you tell me more about those?
Yes. Well, in Trinidad and Tobago, we sort of are attracted by a lot of things that are foreign, because my own view is that we have not been grounded in who we are as Trinidad and Tobago. So by that I mean we don't know about the story of how our carnival was saved in 1881. We don't know that in 1884 people of East Indian heritage were killed by the same colonial administration that had attacked the stick fighters in 1880 and 1881. We don't understand our shared histories, our shared cultures. We no longer talk about pitching marbles and healing your eyes with DTP and telling stories, and we have lost that connection with ourselves, because things like carnival I call it, they've been hijacked by business interests. They've been allowed to be hijacked by business interests. So we feel somehow carnival, for instance, has become about bikinis and all of that, bikini and beads, as the saying goes. But there's traditional carnival, and where do these characters come from? What do they teach us? What is their role in our lives? And so in a way, my mission and our mission is to bring people back to themselves, to bring people from Trinidad and Tobago back to themselves through the work that we do, through the history. And so we do something called African Legacy Tours, which explores sites of African heritage in Trinidad and Tobago. And even doing that, I am learning a lot. We are learning a lot. Yeah. And we don't know so much about what we do, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but internationally. You know, there's somebody called Henry Sylvester Williams from Tunapuna, I think he was from originally. In 1900, he started the first Pan-African conference in London. You know, we have C.L.R. James, we have Kwame Ture, who popularized the term Black Power and who walked with Martin Luther King. And we don't know these things. We don't know about, the people of East Indian heritage who helped to build Port of Spain. And so
we even learn these things in school.
I was just about to say.
Are they on the, I can't remember.
I was just about to say, so that we don't learn these things. We have not learned these things. And even if we learn about enslavement, we don't learn that there were kings and queens in Egypt and in Ethiopia and so on. And we don't learn that, indentureship is only one part of the Indian story. So, our education system has been very colonial in its orientation. And so it has kept us away from ourselves because that, I suppose, was their goal.
Exactly.
So, and through our exploration of the history of Trinidad and Tobago, we are trying to come back to ourselves and to bring young people and even adults back to ourselves.
It's not even coming back to ourselves, it's introducing ourselves to ourselves.
Exactly.
Because a lot of us don't even know these things.
Yeah.
So, Dara, you have so many slashes. Actress, dancer, so many slashes. Tell me about that journey. How have you, had the time to do all these things? And, how did you set yourself up to have so many fingers in different pies?
Well, my whole life really is a journey of searching and this self-discovery. Fortunately, my mother sent me to dance classes when I was a little girl. And I think that I am one of those people you would call a natural dancer, because even now, most times you show me some steps and I know them. So I think that was just a gift that I have had. And then I got into actually television production and discovered that I loved it and I had a knack for it. And I also traveled the Caribbean, and so doing interviews and doing television work. And I just got into the media. And for me, I see that as a continuum with the public relations, which I then became involved in because I was a journalist. So to me, it's one continuum of communications. And I discovered that I had a passion for it and an ability to do it well. And now what I do when the work with Ida Kada is I bring all of those elements together because we create programs for young people that are theatrically based, but also draw on communications lessons. Yeah. So it's all the things about posture, about, it might sound old-fashioned to say etiquette, but you must learn how to walk properly, how to sit properly, how to eat at a table.
And we've lost that.
We've lost that.
Yeah.
And so right now at this phase in my life, I've been able to bring all of my loves and passions together. And so through the dance, to get them to understand how to use their body on stage. And so it's a journey that is kind of coming together. It's coalescing into one nice package. I think.
People sort of think of arts and intellect as separate sometimes. And I mean, even for the young person coming up now who, is very inclined and to do something within the arts. But then there's that more traditional side saying, you cannot make a living from being in the arts. I mean, things are changing, but there is still that doctor, lawyer. It's called sort of a phenomenon. What do you have to say about it? What do you have to tell the young person who really wants to make a career out of the arts?
Well, I think it's possible now in the 21st century because now we have more educational opportunities and we have a generation of parents who are a little more open when it comes, to, career paths for their children. But I think part of the problem is that theatre arts is not propagated as a viable option for young people. And I mean, we have seen we have so many challenges with a simple thing like a space to perform. Artists are always looking for a space. So we need to have a proper sense that the arts is not, like a second child or outside child or something like that. But the arts is critical because it can teach you to count, it can teach you literature, it can teach you literacy, it can teach you history. Professor Hollis Liverpool wrote about that, I think back in the 70s, about using the carnival, for instance, to teach maths, to teach history, to teach literature. So what we have to do is we have to get out of that colonial mindset, and we have to understand that we have to search within who we are as a people, as Trinidad and Tobago, to empower us and to make us proud of who we are and use what we have. We have everything that we need, apart from the climate, apart from it, we have everything that we need right here in Trinidad and Tobago, but we just have to trust it and believe in it and tap into it. And so now the opportunities are there.
And believe that we are good enough and ours is good enough because we still look outside.
Precisely. So, I mean, of course, we can learn from countries and from people who are more advanced in terms of the theatre, in terms of the arts. But for me, we have an instinctive knowledge and understanding of what it means to be involved in the theatre arts. So now the structures have to be put in place to support that and to make young people feel proud of being an artist. And so it's not about a starving artist. Please, there are many artists who are extremely wealthy. But it's not about the money. You do the work, just do the work and all the rewards will come. So I think young people have a lot of potential now. They just have to go for it, and it's hard work. So that's what I would say to young people.
One thing that has always impressed me and one thing that I've always admired about your family is your grounding in your spirituality. How has that played a part in shaping you?
Well, I came to traditional African belief systems very late in my life. I grew up Catholic. I would go to church with my granny. That's some of my fondest memories. Going to church with her. But I was never very religious. I never really felt akin to Catholicism or anything like that. And as part of that journey, part of that searching, I thought about a number of options. And I have Amerindian heritage as well. So I thought, well, maybe do I want to go and see what that was, what it was like. So I went through a journey of looking, and then I came to the African belief systems, and then literally, the space around me opened up, and I realized that this is what I need to do to help take me as a person further. And so it's a very personal and private aspect of my life. For instance, I'm not involved really with any sort of shrine, and I'm not sort of diligent and go to a lot of the events and so. But it's something that I do to help me understand who I am better, to understand my world, to understand the world that I operate in, to understand the obstacles that life may bring, and to use it as a way to make me a better person and to achieve the things I would like to achieve. In just a very kind of quiet and respectful way. So,
So if you had to define God, who is God to you? What is God?
I would say there are a lot of energies in the world, good and bad. And for me, I always want to harness the good energies. I think I don't have a concept of God per se, but I have a concept of spirituality. And I understand that there are energies that have been used by the Mayas, by the Egyptians, by all indigenous cultures. And that could be looking at the seasons. It could be looking at how the elements affect you. But for me, it is about understanding who you are as a person and how you fit in this world. And so it's not about dogma. It's not about being strict about having to do this or having to do that. Because as far as I'm concerned, human beings know what is right. They know what is wrong. They know what is good. They know what is bad. They know what is evil. And I'm very cautious because of doing history, because of studying the history of religions. And so there's a lot that has been taught to us that is not necessarily true. And so I always believe in finding out for myself exactly where I stand on things. So for me, it's not about worshiping any one God or whatever, but it's about worshiping the right way to do things, worshiping a sense of peace and a sense of rightness for yourself. It might sound very long-winded, but I don't know if that's making sense.
That's great.
But it's to me, and it's also about a spiritual journey.
And that's why I spoke about the spirituality that it really resonated with the spirituality, not necessarily the religion, but the spirituality being grounded in something. Yeah. Growing up with somebody like N2 Pearl Springer, I mean, we know she's a powerful person. She's an icon. She's a stalwart. What's the most important lesson you learned from N2?
Always be yourself. Always be true to yourself. And I think I didn't know it at the time, but growing up the way I did, I was prepared for a life of being very confident in who I am, in how I look, in my skin color, in the decisions that I make. And we were privileged to have a lot of the great minds of the region around us, from George Lamin, Peter Minshall, David Rudder, whoever. I mean, these are Errol Jones. These are the people that I grew up calling uncle. And I just took that for granted. And I was also exposed to a wide range of music, culture, Trinidad and Tobago. So we never grew up in a very sort of narrow-minded way. So, and when we talk now to people about our upbringing, more than once people say, "Oh, I wish I grew up like you." Because we had storytelling, and she always tells the joke that her grandchildren are now still not too sure if there's a sukuya in the back of the house where there's an empty lot, but we grew up with a wealth of experiences, and so I can face the world in a very confident way, in a way that I realize a lot of my peers and the younger generation, they're still struggling with. And I'm fortunate that I don't have those struggles. And that was because of the way I was brought up. So,
okay. So basically in closing, what do you have to tell the young person looking on? What do you want to leave with them?
Follow your passion, follow your dream. And don't think you can get anything easily. You always have to work hard, but it's better to work hard for what you want and what you achieve, and know that you put the effort in there, because when you see the results of it, you feel so proud inside of what you've achieved that you did it yourself, and it's all worth it.
Oh. That's really good, Dara. Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks so much for being on Caribbean Vision. And definitely, I'm sure you'll come back. You're going to bring N2 next time.
Yes,
thanks
for sure. All right. Blessings. All right. Okay.
So we thank you for joining us on Caribbean Vision. And really, it was a great interview with Dara, and seeing her journey and how creativity can fuse with social good. And I think if you infuse good in anything you do, I think that's just the way to go. It's about that passion and just making a difference.